Looking better, smelling better, tasting better, the face is better. I'm on my way, I'm feeling righteous. Oh man, they gonna eat me alive.
Max B just walked out of prison today after serving 16 long years, and the whole city feels different already. The Harlem legend is finally free, and hip-hop fans everywhere are hyped about his return. But there's one person who hasn't said a single word about it, and that silence is loud. That person is Jim Jones. These two weren't dealing with some small disagreement. They had one of the deepest, most personal fallouts in New York rap history. Even after all this time, it's clear Jim still isn't ready to let things go, and that says a lot. This is the real story behind how their bond shattered, why Jim won't welcome Max home, and what this could mean for their futures in the rap world. Back in 2009, Max B got hit with a shocking 75-year sentence for a robbery that turned into a murder at a Holiday Inn in New Jersey. Even though Max wasn't at the scene when the shooting went down, he was convicted of felony murder and conspiracy to commit armed robbery.
Will you work with Max B when he gets out of jail?
Fuck Max B.
Okay.
Max, dick, fuck out of here.
Prosecutors claimed he planned the whole thing and that his ex-girlfriend, Gina Conway, carried out the robbery under his instructions. Max kept saying he was innocent, but the jury still hit him with 9 out of 11 charges. He sat in prison while his legal team fought non-stop to get his sentence reduced and prove he didn't get a fair shot in court. Then, in 2016, everything flipped. His lawyers argued that his original attorney, Gerald Saluti, had a major conflict of interest because he wasn't just Max's criminal lawyer. Gerald was also his manager and entertainment lawyer at the exact same time. Max's team said Gerald pushed him to reject a 10-year plea deal and go to trial, all because Gerald believed he'd make more money off Max's career if Max beat the case. And he came home a legend, no question about it. But here's the part that still blows people's minds. If Max had taken that 10-year plea deal, Gerald would have missed out on every future dollar Max could have earned once he got back on the streets. The judge looked at the whole situation and agreed it was a huge conflict of interest, basically saying this should have never gone down like that in the first place. The conviction got tossed, Max went back to trial, and even though he was found guilty again, his sentence dropped from a brutal 75 years to just 20 with credit for the time he'd already served. That meant Max could be out by 2025, and today the impossible became real. Max walked out of prison this morning as a completely free man for the first time since 2009, and the hip-hop world exploded with reactions. French Montana wasted no time. He showed love instantly on social media, posting like he'd been waiting for this day forever. Fans jumped in too, flooding the internet with memories, excitement, and pure love for Max's long-awaited return. People started celebrating like it was a holiday, talking about Max's classic mixtapes from the late 2000s, the ones that had New York in a chokehold and changed the street sound forever. Everyone's already wondering what his first track back might feel like, and if he still has that smooth, wavy sound that turned him into a Harlem icon. The Coke Wave tapes he made with French Montana are still considered timeless, and fans are begging for that magic to hit again like it never left. But while everyone else was showing love, one name was missing from the celebration: Jim Jones. The silence was impossible to ignore, and people started asking questions instantly because Max and Jim's story is way deeper than a simple falling out.
Let's see him, nigga.
Hold up,
Let little Sharon get in there. Let little Sharon get in there.
There she go.
Where's little Sharon at?
I'm gonna give him the phone. Hold up.
Yo, them jeans ain't tight enough, nigga.
I nigga look like 30.
Them jeans ain't tight enough, nigga.
Their history stretches almost 2 decades, full of music, loyalty, and betrayal that turned friends into enemies. They came up together in Harlem during the early 2000s, right when Dipset was running the whole city, shifting culture, fashion, and sound all at once. Max moved in the same circles, made music with Jim, and helped bring Harlem back into the spotlight after other boroughs had been dominating for years. He was even part of Jim's Bird Gang, a Dipset spin-off with stacked bundles and a lineup of Harlem talent that was supposed to take over the game. At first, everything looked solid, like they were building something historic together. But when success comes in, money, ego, and jealousy come right along with it, and that's when things got messy fast. A few years ago, Jim was asked straight up in an interview if he'd ever work with Max B again once Max got out of prison, and the way he answered said more than any diss track ever could. The interviewer brought it up because Jim had just squashed his issues with French Montana, and once people saw that, they instantly started asking if he'd show that same energy toward Max, but Jim shut that down instantly. He didn't hesitate, he didn't sugarcoat, he didn't dance around the question, he said no, straight up. He made it crystal clear that there was no world where he'd squash things with Max or even think about working together again.
I said once a fucking minute. Yeah.
My fucking brothers is back together.
Yeah, they finally did it. They finally did it. They finally did it.
Good. Let's go get that
They finally did it. We going to Morocco. We going to Morocco.
Jim said what happened between them was too personal and too deep to ever forget, and the way he said it made it obvious this wasn't just industry drama. This came from the heart. He didn't break down every detail during that interview, but anyone who watched that beef unfold back then already knew the pain behind his words. Now that Max is finally free and walking around again, it looks like Jim's mindset hasn't changed even a little. His silence today on social media speaks louder than any diss track he could ever record. The drama between Max and Jim goes way back to 2006 and 2007, and it's way more layered than two artists fighting over clout or bragging rights. This was about loyalty, trust, money, and respect, the type of things that break friendships forever when they go wrong. When Max got arrested in September 2006 for the robbery and murder case, he was right on the edge of blowing up as a solo artist. He had just helped Jim write We Fly High, the track that turned into Jim's biggest hit and climbed to number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. That song was massive. It was playing in every club, every barbershop, every car cruising down every block. It changed Jim's whole position in the industry, putting him in a new lane where he wasn't just known as Cameron's guy, he was a star on his own. It brought him real money, real respect, and new doors opening left and right.
Max B coming home. Where we at with that? Are you able to get past that?
No.
But when Max needed help paying his $2 million bail so he could fight the case from the outside, he expected Jim to show up for him like a real brother would, but what happened next created a crack that never healed. Instead of coming through with the money, Jim slid in with a record deal. The deal came with an advance Max could use for bail, but there was a major catch. Max had to sign over all his publishing rights to Jim to get that money, and that one condition flipped their whole relationship upside down. Publishing rights are where the real long-term bread comes from. So signing them away meant Max would lose every royalty and future paycheck from anything he created under that deal, basically giving up the very thing artists depend on to survive in the industry. To Max, it felt like Jim was hitting him with a business move at the exact moment he was at his weakest, and that stung hard. He was staring at the possibility of spending decades behind bars for a murder he said he never committed, and he needed to be out so he could meet with his lawyers, build a defense, and prove his side of the story. With no other choice on the table, Max signed the deal, even though he knew deep down it would wreck his career and future earnings later on. That one desperate decision followed him for years like a shadow he couldn't shake, and it became one of the biggest reasons the trust between him and Jim collapsed. When Max finally walked out in 2007, after sitting inside for 10 painful months waiting for trial, the damage between him and Jim was almost beyond repair. Max felt completely betrayed, like the person he thought would ride with him chose paperwork over friendship. In his eyes, Jim should have helped because they moved like brothers, not because there was money to gain or control to keep. And Max didn't stay quiet about it either. In interviews over the years, he said he contributed way more to Jim's success than people realized. He claimed he wasn't just writing hooks, he was putting together Jim's verses, building whole song ideas, and shaping the vibe and style that Jim became known for. Max felt like he was the creative engine behind a lot of those big moments, but when it came time to get paid or treated fairly, he said Jim acted like he was just a regular songwriter instead of somebody who helped build an entire movement. And things got even worse on the road. Max said that when they performed shows together, Jim would hand him just $300 per appearance, while Jim himself walked away with $10,000 to $15,000 from the same night. That massive pay gap built up a storm of resentment inside Max. He felt like he was carrying just as much weight on stage, hyping the crowd and giving the show energy, yet he was being paid like he barely mattered. All of that, the money, the publishing, the pressure, the broken trust, stacked up until their whole relationship fell apart piece by piece. Max also had to deal with all the beef Jim had with rappers and crews in different cities, which made every show feel like a war zone instead of a performance. Jim had problems everywhere, and whenever they hit the stage together, those enemies pulled up ready to start trouble. People were throwing chairs, starting fights, rushing the stage, doing anything to get close to Jim during performances. Meanwhile, Max was standing right there, putting himself at risk for scraps of money, and he felt completely disrespected and overlooked. Things went from bad to worse once Max started doing interviews from jail. After he got convicted in 2009, he aired out everything, the money issues, the loyalty problems, all of it, and he told the world he wrote, "We Fly High." He said Jim was taking credit for his work and pushing it like it was his own creation. Max also said Jim abandoned him when he needed him the most and wouldn't even pitch in for bail, even though they were supposed to be moving like family. Jim clapped back in his own interviews, saying Max was stretching the truth and making it sound like he created entire songs by himself. Jim said Max might have helped with hooks or ideas, but he didn't write full tracks the way he claimed. But Max had proof that made people believe his side even while he was sitting behind bars. He kept dropping mixtapes from prison that showed he had crazy talent as both a writer and an artist. Projects like Public Domain and Public Domain 2 made it obvious he could make hits without Jim's help, and fans started asking real questions about who had been writing what all along. That back and forth hit Jim's credibility hard and made the whole situation even more personal. But then Max did something Jim could never look past, something that took the beef from music and money straight into family territory. Max started going after Jim's longtime girlfriend and eventually his wife, Chrissy Lampkin, mentioning her in interviews and on mixtapes. Max claimed that Chrissy gave him oral sex by the pool during a trip to Miami, a statement that lit the streets on fire and pushed the feud into a place where forgiveness wasn't even possible. Max didn't just hint at the situation or drop a quick line, he went all the way in. He made a full track called She Touched It in Miami, flipping Jim's own record Summer Whip Miami into a remix aimed straight at him. Max rapped openly about being with Chrissy, and he did it in a way meant to embarrass Jim on purpose, like he wanted the whole world to hear it and react. The lyrics were bold, messy, and designed to hit Jim right where it hurt the most. And honestly, a lot of people understand exactly why Jim keeps his distance and think he has every right to do so. Max didn't just go bar for bar or throw a slick diss. He went after Jim's wife publicly, pushed claims that damaged Jim's image, and tried to make him look weak in front of the entire hip-hop community. That's not the kind of disrespect that just fades away with time, no matter how long someone sits in prison. In hip-hop, respect and loyalty are major rules. They're the foundation you're supposed to stand on. And once you cross certain lines, there's no easy path back, no handshake strong enough to fix it. Some things create scars that don't heal, especially when family gets involved and the disrespect goes public. Plus, there's a whole business side people need to think about too. Jim Jones has spent the last 20 years building his brand from the ground up, shaping his reputation, and creating relationships with powerful people across the music world. He's worked with major artists, launched successful businesses, and built a lane where he's respected as someone who guides and mentors younger talent. That kind of reputation takes years to build, and one wrong move can ruin it fast. Bringing Max B back into his circle could easily complicate everything Jim has worked for. Max has always been known as unpredictable, someone who speaks from emotion and isn't scared to air out private issues in public without thinking about what doors might close because of it. Jim might not want to risk his network, his brand, or his image by reconnecting with someone who once humiliated him in front of millions and proved he could flip on him when things got rough. Meanwhile, Max is focused on moving forward with his life and career no matter what Jim decides. He's already talking about jumping into the studio again and dropping new music like he never left. And French Montana, who stayed loyal to Max the entire time he was locked up, was one of the first people to celebrate him coming home today. Those two have real chemistry, and everyone knows they're almost guaranteed to link up again and try to bring back the magic they created on the Shockwaves mixtape series. Max still has a loyal fan base that never stopped rooting for him, even after more than a decade away from the spotlight. During his entire time behind bars, his old mixtapes from the 2000s kept spinning like they just dropped yesterday, proving his sound never went out of style. What's even crazier is that younger fans, people who weren't even around during his first run, started discovering his music and becoming supporters too, showing that Max's wave reached way beyond his era. Now that he's finally free, people are genuinely excited to see what he's about to bring to the table. Fans want to hear the new sound, the updated flow, and the perspective of someone who spent 16 years locked up and still managed to stay relevant. Everyone wants to know how prison changed him, what he learned, and what kind of energy he's coming with now that he's walking the streets again. But the silence from Jim Jones speaks volumes louder than any tweet, interview, or studio session ever could. The fact that Jim didn't post a single welcome home message shows that some beefs in hip-hop don't fade with time, they just settle in deeper. Jim has moved forward with his life, leveled up, and positioned himself in a way where he doesn't need Max in his corner for anything. Jim is successful, respected, and connected in the industry, so revisiting that old relationship could bring more problems than benefits for him. And because of that, Max will have to rebuild his career without Jim's support or co-sign, which definitely makes the climb harder, but it doesn't make it impossible. Max has his own legacy, a loyal crowd, and a reputation for creating timeless music, so he still has the tools to rise again. The truth is, Jim Jones and Max B will probably never work together again, or even sit down in the same room to clear things up. There's been too much drama, too much disrespect, and too many personal lines crossed for either one of them to pretend it's all water under the bridge. Jim has repeated his stance for years, and Max seems to understand it, choosing to focus on the future instead of trying to fix something that broke a long time ago. Their story is one of those rare hip-hop feuds, the kind that becomes legendary because it refuses to die, even when both artists move on with their lives. Situations like this are rare in hip-hop because both sides actually have real reasons for how they feel, and both believe they're completely justified in their stance. At this point, it isn't even about who's right or wrong, it's about two people who once moved like family. But the bond got damaged so deeply that there's no way to rewind the clock. Sometimes friendships break in a way that time just can't fix, no matter how many years pass. So now the big question falls on the culture. Should Jim Jones try to forgive Max B now that he's finally home after 16 long years? Is it time to let the past stay in the past, or is Jim completely right for keeping his distance and protecting everything he's built? And on the flip side, does Max deserve a clean slate and a chance to show growth, or did he cross so many lines that there's no version of reality where these two could ever sit at the same table again? We want to hear how you feel about it, so drop your thoughts in the comments and let us know exactly where you stand. Your take matters, especially with a story this deep and personal. And make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, drop a comment, and share the video with somebody who needs to hear this breakdown. We're following Max B's comeback story step by step, and we'll keep you tuned in with every update, every move, and every surprise as he makes his way back into the music world. See you on the next video.